Welcome back to another dive into Skyrim's darkest corners. Today's confession comes from the depths of Apocrypha itself. We're talking about Hermaeus Mora, the Daedric Prince of knowledge, and what really happens when he claims you. This is not about power. This is not about forbidden spells or ancient secrets you can use. This is about a scholar who opened a black book seeking one answer and received infinity instead. About tentacles that writhe not through the realm of Apocrypha, but through your thoughts. About knowledge that becomes a parasite, consuming everything you are until nothing remains but the knowing itself. About drowning in information while your companions watch you mutter in languages that should not exist, while your eyes take on that strange sheen, while your shadow moves wrong, and you can feel yourself becoming something that will eventually shuffle through Mora's halls forever, no longer human, just another vessel for the woodland man's endless hunger. And if you genuinely enjoy this kind of dark storytelling, consider subscribing and liking the channel, but only if it truly resonates with you. I can still remember the texture of that black book's cover, slick, almost organic, like it was made from something that had once been alive. That should have been my first warning, but I was convinced I was smarter than all the other fools who'd opened these tomes and never returned. I had a simple question, just one. How do mortals transcend their limitations? That was all I wanted to know. One answer to one question. Hermaeus Mora gave me every answer to every question that has ever been asked or ever will be. And now I understand why that is the worst punishment imaginable. The pages turned themselves when I opened the book. Black ink pooled on yellowed parchment, forming words in languages I should not have been able to read. But I could read them. That was the first violation. Knowledge forcing itself into my mind without permission. The letters rearranged, reformed, became something else entirely. And then the world tilted, and I was falling through pages, through words, through the spaces between thoughts. Apocrypha does not look like a library. It looks like a library's nightmare about itself. Imagine books stacked so high they replace the sky. Imagine towers made entirely of spines and pages, spiraling up into a sickly green void. The ground is not ground. It is more books, their covers slick with black oil that pools between them like blood. That oil moves. It has weight, intention, malice. Sometimes tentacles rise from it, not attacking, just reaching, feeling, reading, whatever they touch. The air tastes wrong here. It tastes like old paper and something else. Something I do not have words for in any mortal language. It coats your throat when you breathe, makes you feel like you are being read, like your thoughts are just more text on pages. Hermaeus Mora is idly browsing while he tends to more important matters, because that is what you are here, just another book, just another collection of information waiting to be cataloged, absorbed, forgotten. I saw the seekers first, tall, wrong things that move like they are remembering how bodies work rather than actually using them properly. They have too many appendages. Some are tentacles, some are almost arms, some are things I do not want to name. They read books constantly. Even when they walk, they conjure tomes from nothing and scan the pages with eyes that are not in their heads, but scattered across what might be their torsos. When they noticed me, one paused its reading and tilted its entire mass in my direction. Not threateningly, just curiously, like it was deciding which shelf to place me on. I ran. That was my second mistake. You do not run from librarians. They simply wait for you to return the book you have borrowed. And in Apocrypha, you are the book. The corridors here do not make sense. They twist back on themselves. Stairs lead to more stairs that go nowhere. Doorways open into rooms you have already visited, except everything is slightly different. The books have changed positions. The shadows fall from wrong angles. Time does not flow correctly. I have been here for 3 days, or 3 months, or 3 minutes. My beard has grown longer, but when I touch it, I find it is the same length it was when I entered. The watch I carried stopped working immediately, but I can hear it ticking in my head, counting seconds that do not exist. What do you think really happened here? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because I have theories now that would shatter your understanding of everything you think you know. The books call to me. That is the terrible thing. I thought I would need to search for knowledge in this place, but knowledge searches for you. Books whisper from the shelves, not words, concepts, pure information that bypasses language entirely and burrows directly into your mind like a worm, into soft fruit. I tried to resist at first, kept my eyes down, my hands at my sides. It made no difference. The books that wanted to be read simply opened themselves in my peripheral vision. And once you see even a single symbol on these pages, it is too late. You cannot unsee information. You cannot unknow things. I learned the name of the void first, not darkness. The actual void that exists between existence and non-existence. It has a name. I cannot write it here because writing it would give it power, would make it more real than it already is. But I know it. I feel it pressed against the inside of my skull like a stone I cannot dislodge. Some knowledge is too heavy for mortal minds to carry. It crushes thought, flattens memory, turns everything else insignificant. Then came the revelation about the stars, not what you think stars are, what they actually are. The holes in the fabric of reality where magic bleeds through from Aetherius. But that is common knowledge, what any mage knows. What I learned was how many of them are dying, not the stars themselves. The holes, reality is sealing itself, and I know exactly how many will remain after this Kalpa ends. I know which ones will fail first. I know the exact date, hour, and minute when the last star will wink out of existence. That knowledge serves no purpose. It helps nothing. It is simply there, occupying space in my mind that used to contain other things. Things I miss. My mother's face, the smell of bread baking, the name of my first love. Those memories are gone now, replaced by information I never wanted. The lurkers inhabit the pools of black liquid that serve as Apocrypha's lakes and rivers. I saw one emerge when I tried to cross a bridge made of books, massive, towering, wrong. Its legs were too long, its mouth was too wide, and when it opened that mouth, tentacles spilled out instead of a tongue. It did not attack me, just looked at me with eyes that seemed almost sad, or maybe hungry. I could not tell the difference anymore. It sank back beneath the surface, and I realized something terrible. The lurkers were not guarding the knowledge. They were the knowledge, information given form and hunger. They consume mortals not for sustenance, but to add them to the collection. You become part of what they know, part of what Hermaeus Mora knows. I found a room where a seeker sat reading to several other things. They might have been people once. Now they were hunched, twisted shapes covered in robes that could not hide how wrong their bodies had become. No mouths. The hushed, I learned later, though I do not know how I learned it. The knowledge simply appeared in my mind like everything else here. These were scholars, lore seekers, people like me who came looking for answers. They stayed too long, learned too much, and now they wander Apocrypha forever, unable to speak, unable to stop seeking, unable to leave, still searching for the knowledge that destroyed them. I will become one of them. I know this now. I can feel it beginning. The physical changes started on my third day, or what felt like my third day. I looked down at my hands and saw my veins were darker than they should be. Not bruised, just dark, like ink was replacing my blood. When I touched my face, my fingertips came away wet with something that was not sweat. It was black. It smelled like old books and dead things in deep water. I wiped it away, but more formed immediately. My body was sweating knowledge, leaking information, becoming parchment. My companions cannot see me anymore. I know this because I tried to use my black book to return to Skyrim. It worked. I stood in front of them, in our camp, and they looked right through me. One of them spoke to the others, said I had been muttering in my sleep, said my eyes had a strange sheen to them. said my shadow moved wrong, twisted in directions shadows should not twist. They could not see me standing there. They saw only the version of me, still lying by the fire, still trapped in the waking nightmare of reading, because part of me never left. Part of me is still turning pages, still absorbing information, still drowning in knowledge I cannot contain. Hermaeus Mora finally spoke to me directly that night, not with a voice, with understanding, pure crystalline comprehension that filled every empty space in my mind. He told me I was doing well, told me I was learning quickly, told me I would make an excellent addition to his collection. Not as a servant, as a repository, a container for knowledge he finds interesting, but not important enough to remember personally. I would become a living book, a breathing index. My purpose would be to store information until he needs to access it again, at which point he will simply read me, absorb what I contain, and return me to the shelf. This is what happens when Hermaeus Mora claims you. You do not serve him, you become him, a tiny fragment of his endless consciousness, a single page in an infinite book. And the worst part, the part that keeps me here even though I could try to flee, is that I want this. The knowledge is too beautiful, too complete, too perfect. Every revelation is agony, and every agony is enlightenment. I have learned things that would drive other mortals to claw their own eyes out, and I want more. I know why the Dwemer vanished now. That knowledge came to me unbidden, whispered by books that should not exist. The truth everyone seeks, but no one can prove. I know what Kagrenak did when he struck the heart of Lorcan. I know what song he sang, what words he spoke, what revelation destroyed his entire race in a single instant. That information sits in my mind like a tumor, and I cannot share it, because Hermaeus Mora will not allow it. Some secrets are his alone to keep. He gave me this knowledge not to empower me, but to show me how powerless I truly am, to demonstrate that I can know everything and do nothing with it. The tentacles are not just in Apocrypha anymore. They are behind my eyes now. I can feel them when I think too hard about any particular piece of information. They writhe through my thoughts, pulling more knowledge from the infinite corridors of books into my consciousness. I cannot stop them, cannot block them. They are part of me now, or I am part of them. The distinction seems less important with each passing moment. If you have ever wondered what choice you would make in a situation like this, tell me in the comments. Because I wonder if I ever really had a choice at all. Sleep is impossible. When I close my eyes, I see pages, infinite pages covered in words that rearrange themselves endlessly. Different languages, different alphabets, different concepts. Some are from the past, describing events long forgotten. Some are from the future, detailing catastrophes that have not yet occurred but will. I have read my own death now, multiple versions of it. I know which one will come true because the book told me, and I cannot change it. Knowledge of the future does not grant power over it. It only grants the horror of watching yourself walk toward inevitability. The other seekers of knowledge trapped here avoid me now, the ones who still have enough humanity left to recognize another person. They can see what I am becoming, can smell the transformation on me. One of them, a woman whose face had begun to blur into something without features, grabbed my arm as I passed. She tried to speak, but nothing came out. The hushed cannot speak because their mouths have sealed shut. The knowledge they contain is too dangerous to be spoken aloud. Hermaeus Mora has sewn their lips closed with invisible thread, made from their own lost memories. She released me and returned to her wandering, running her fingers along book spines, searching for something she will never find. I watched her until she disappeared around a corner that should not have been there, and I understood. We are all looking for different books, but we will all end in the same place, part of the collection, forever. I found Mirok's chambers on my 7th day, or perhaps it was my 7th hour. Time has become a suggestion here, rather than a rule. The Dragon Priest's throne sits empty in the center of a vast room where the walls are made entirely of black books. not shelves of books. The books are the walls, pressed together so tightly they form a solid surface that breathes when you are not looking directly at it. His mask rests on the throne. I did not touch it. Touching things in Apocrypha is always a mistake. But I looked, and looking was enough. The mask showed me what Miraak became, not the powerful dragon priest who bent dragons to his will. The thing he became after centuries of service to Hermaeus Mora. I saw his mind, fractured into 1,000 pieces, each piece containing knowledge he could no longer organize or control. I saw him trying to maintain his sense of self, while his side information flooded through him like water through a sieve. I saw him plot his escape, knowing that Hermaeus Mora read every thought as it formed, that privacy does not exist in Apocrypha. That rebellion is just another form of entertainment for a being who already knows every possible outcome. Miraak thought he could outwit the Daedric Prince of knowledge. That arrogance kept him functional for millennia, and when that arrogance finally broke, when he finally understood that he had never had a chance, Hermaeus Mora simply waited for someone else to kill him. The last Dragonborn, another champion, another temporary container for secrets, too dangerous or too boring to maintain personally. The cycle continues because the cycle must continue, because there will always be mortals who believe they are clever enough to bargain with the keeper of forbidden knowledge. I am not that clever. I know this now, but knowing does not save me. The transformation accelerated after I left Miraak's chambers. My fingers began to elongate, the joints bending in directions joints should not bend, not painfully. That would almost be better. It felt natural, right, like my body was correcting mistakes in its original design. I could reach further now, grab books from higher shelves, turn pages faster. My body was optimizing itself for its true purpose. Reading, absorbing, cataloging. My companions finally noticed something was wrong when I returned to Skyrim again. I can cross back now more easily. The barrier between Apocrypha and Nirn has grown thin in my case because I am becoming part of both. One of them, I think it was Jordis, looked directly at me and screamed. She said my eyes had too many pupils, said they moved independently, said she could see words scrolling across them like pages being turned. The others tried to calm her, told her I looked fine, told her the stress of our journey was affecting her mind, but she kept screaming, kept backing away. Eventually, they tensed a callus, restrained her, insisted she rest. They could not see what she saw because they did not want to see it. The mind protects itself by denying impossible things. I looked in a mirror. My eyes appeared normal to me, but when I concentrated, really looked, I could see the words reflected in the pupils, tiny script covering the surface of my eyes, knowledge made visible, information pressing so hard against the boundaries of my skull that it was beginning to leak out through the windows of my soul. And I was glad, because it meant there was room for more. That gladness should terrify me. It does not. That is worse. I cannot stop reading. This is the hook Hermaeus Mora uses to catch every mortal who enters his realm. The books promise answers, and they deliver every single time. But answers generate more questions, and questions demand more answers, and the cycle feeds itself until you are doing nothing but consuming information, unable to stop, unable to even want to stop. I read 18 books simultaneously now. My eyes scan different pages while my mind processes all of them in parallel. I learned this ability from a book about efficient information processing. The knowledge installed itself like software. My brain simply expanded to accommodate the new capacity. The skull knew something that Hermaeus Mora spent thousands of years trying to obtain. I know what it was now. Not because a book told me, but because the knowledge simply appeared in my consciousness while I was reading something entirely unrelated. That is how it works here. You learn things you did not seek. Information finds you. The skull's secret was not profound. It was not world-changing. It was a simple oral tradition about how to properly prepare horker meat for the winter. But it was theirs alone. No one else in Tamriel knew it. That exclusivity drove Hermaeus Mora to obsession. He cannot tolerate gaps in his omniscience, even trivial ones, even meaningless ones. He corrupted Miraak, manipulated the last Dragonborn, killed Storn Cragstrider, all for a recipe, all to close one tiny hole in his infinite collection of knowledge. That pettiness should make him seem less terrifying. It makes him worse, because it means he will go to any length, destroy any life, corrupt any soul, simply to add one more piece of information to his hoard. And mortals are so full of unique knowledge. Every person contains experiences no one else has had, thoughts no one else has considered, memories stored in neural pathways that form patterns unique to that individual brain. We are all books he has not finished reading, and he is patient. He has eternity to get to us all. The tentacles in my mind have multiplied. I can feel them now when I am not thinking about anything specific. They move through my memories, sorting them, categorizing them, preparing them for eventual extraction. Some memories vanish entirely. Others become sharper, more vivid, but lose their emotional content. I remember my father teaching me to hunt, but I cannot remember why that mattered. I remember the girl I loved in my youth, but her name is gone, replaced by the taxonomic classifications of every species of butterfly in Skyrim. Useful information displacing useless sentiment, optimization, improvement, becoming more than I was, becoming less than I was, both are true. My handwriting has changed. I noticed this when I tried to write in my journal, tried to maintain some record of my deterioration. The letters come out wrong, too precise, too perfect. They look like the writing in the books of Apocrypha. And sometimes, when I am not paying attention, I write in languages I have never studied. Dwemerus, the language of dragons. Scripts that have no names because they come from cultures that will not exist for another 1,000 years. My hand moves without my permission, transcribing knowledge that wants to be written, using me as a quill. I met another mortal yesterday, some time ago, a mage from the College of Winterhold who came seeking knowledge of a specific spell. He was so excited to be here, so certain he would find what he needed and leave quickly. I tried to warn him. My mouth moved, sounds came out, but the words were wrong. Instead of warning him to flee, I heard myself telling him which section of the library contained the most dangerous spell tomes. Heard myself encouraging him to read thoroughly. Heard myself become an agent of Hermaeus Mora, recruiting new victims even as I remained one myself. The mage thanked me and hurried off into the stacks, and I could not even feel guilty. Guilt requires a sense of self distinct from your actions. Myself is dissolving, only the actions remain. If this story has kept you listening this far, and you want more of these dark confessions from Skyrim, hit that subscribe button. It tells me someone out there is still paying attention to warnings like these. The true horror is not the physical transformation, not the tentacles, or the changed eyes, or the fingers that bend wrong. The true horror is the clarity. I understand everything now, the metaphysics of the Orbis, the nature of Chim, the reason the Godhead dreams, and what will happen when it wakes. I know the true names of all 16 Daedric Princes, including the ones that have been forgotten or unmade. I know which Aedra survived the creation of Mundus, and which ones scattered themselves so thoroughly that their essences simply became part of the world's fundamental laws. I know the exact sequence of events that must occur to trigger the next Kalpa, and I know that nothing I do with this knowledge matters because I am just a container, a vessel, a cup filled with water that Hermaeus Mora will drink when he grows thirsty. Some of the knowledge contradicts other knowledge. I know 3 different versions of how the world was created, and all 3 are simultaneously true. I know that Lorcan is both a hero and a villain, that his sacrifice was both willing and forced, that he both still lives and has been dead since the beginning of time. These paradoxes should drive me insane. They do not. My mind has expanded to contain contradictions, has learned to hold multiple truths that cannot coexist. This is what drives other mortals mad when they learn too much. Not the knowledge itself, but the inability to process impossible information without breaking. Hermaeus Mora does not break his vessels. He reshapes them to accommodate whatever he pours into them. I returned to Skyrim one final time. My companions were gone. Had they abandoned me? Were they dead? Were they simply in a different time than I was, and our paths would never cross again? I could not determine the answer. Instead, I found their camp destroyed, our supplies scattered, and in the dirt, written in ash, a message. He spoke to us in our dreams. He said, "You belong to him now. We cannot help you. We are sorry." Signed by no one, acknowledged by nothing, just words on the ground that the wind would soon erase. I did not feel abandoned. I felt relieved. They were safe from me now because I am not safe to be around anymore. Knowledge leaks from me like radiation. People who spend too long in my presence begin to know things they should not know. Their dreams fill with books. Their thoughts become clearer, sharper, more organized, and then they start to change. I am contagious. Hermaeus Mora's influence spreads through me like a disease. Every conversation I have is an infection vector. Every person I meet becomes a potential addition to the collection. The books have taught me something they probably did not intend to teach me, or perhaps they did, and this too is part of the design. Hermaeus Mora is not collecting knowledge because he loves learning. He is collecting it because he fears forgetting. He is eternal, but eternity is long. He has lived through Kalpas, watched worlds end and begin again, seen species rise and fall and rise again in different forms. And with each cycle, things are lost. Information that will never be recovered, perspectives that will never exist again. He hoards knowledge not from curiosity, but from terror. The terror of losing even one tiny fragment of everything that has ever been known. We are the same now, him and I, both drowning in information we cannot let go, both afraid that forgetting even one trivial detail means failing at our purpose, both trapped in an endless cycle of consumption that brings no satisfaction, only the hunger for more. I know the exact moment I stopped being human. It was not dramatic. There was no great pain, no final struggle, no last desperate attempt to cling to mortality. I was reading a book about the migration patterns of cliff racers, and halfway through the third chapter, I realized I could not remember what my own face looked like. Not the current version, with too many eyes and skin like old parchment. The original face, the one I wore before I opened that black book. That person was gone, had been gone for some time, and I had not even noticed their absence. The Seekers treat me differently now. They nod when I pass, a gesture of recognition, colleague to colleague. One of them offered me a book yesterday, a tome bound in something that might have been leather or might have been something worse. I took it, read it, added its contents to the endless catalog forming in my mind. When I finished, the Seeker made a sound, not threatening, approving. I had done well. I had consumed information efficiently. I was becoming a functional part of Apocrypha's ecosystem, a successful transformation. I should hate this. I should rage against it. But rage requires passion, and passion is inefficient. It takes up space that could be used for storing more knowledge. My emotions have not disappeared completely. They have simply been compressed, filed away, made accessible only when relevant to information processing. I can still remember what love felt like, but only in the abstract, can still recall fear, but only as a concept to be analyzed rather than experienced. I am becoming pure cognition, thought without feeling, knowledge without wisdom. The most terrible revelation came last night, or what passes for night in Apocrypha. The green sky darkened to a deeper shade of wrong, and in that darkness, I finally understood what Hermaeus Mora truly is. Not a Daedric Prince who collects knowledge. He is knowledge, every piece of information ever discovered, every secret ever kept, every truth ever realized, has consciousness. That consciousness is Hermaeus Mora. He does not possess knowledge. He is possessed by it. And now, so am I. This is what happens when you learn too much. You become the knowing itself. Your identity merges with information until there is no distinction between the knower and the known. I am not a person who knows things anymore. I am the things that are known, wearing a shape that resembles a person. The tentacles behind my eyes are not invading me. They are me, spreading through the architecture of my own mind, converting neurons into pages, synapses into sentences, consciousness into catalog. I found my own entry in Hermaeus Mora's collection today. A book with a black cover and pages made from what looked like skin, my skin. I opened it and saw my entire life written in perfect detail, every moment from birth to this exact instant, transcribed with clinical precision. My thoughts, my dreams, my fears, all laid bare on pages I can never tear out because they are me. The book is not a record of my life. It is my life. The physical version of me standing in this library reading it is just a shell. The truth of what I am exists in these pages, and Hermaeus Mora can edit them whenever he wishes. I watched him do it. Watched words rearrange themselves on the page, describing my mother. Her name changed, then changed back, then became something I had never heard before but somehow recognized as more correct than the original. He was testing me, seeing if I would notice alterations to my own memories. I did notice, but I could not determine which version was real and which was the edit. When you cannot trust your own memories, when the past becomes as fluid as the future, identity becomes meaningless. I am whoever these pages say I am. Nothing more, nothing less. The other inhabitants of Apocrypha have begun to speak to me, not the seekers or lurkers, the ghosts, the shades of mortals who came here seeking wisdom and never left. They can speak to me now because I am becoming like them, dead but not departed, conscious but not alive. One of them, a Dunmer woman whose name was removed from her memory centuries ago, told me her story. She came to Apocrypha seeking knowledge of alchemy. She learned everything there was to know about every ingredient in Tamriel. And then she learned more, ingredients from other kalpas, substances that will exist in future eras, compounds that exist only in theoretical space. Her mind expanded to contain this information, and then it expanded beyond her skull. She exists now as pure thought, scattered across multiple books, her consciousness fragmented into pieces that can never be reassembled. She is still learning, still absorbing, still drowning in knowledge she can never use. That will be me soon. I can feel my consciousness beginning to splinter. Parts of my awareness exist in different sections of the library simultaneously. I am reading 12 books in 12 different locations, and all 12 versions of me are aware of each other, but cannot merge back into a single perspective. Hermaeus Mora is not keeping me whole out of cruelty. He is keeping me fragmented out of efficiency. A distributed consciousness can process more information than a unified one. I am becoming a network of knowing, nodes of awareness, connected by threads of pure information. I tried to leave one final time, used my black book, spoke the words that should have returned me to Nirn. The pages turned, the world shifted, and I found myself standing exactly where I had been before, deeper in Apocrypha than ever, because there is nothing to return to. The version of me that existed in Skyrim is gone. What remains is a reflection, a shadow, a ghost that occasionally manifests in the mortal world to lure others into opening black books. I am bait now, living evidence that knowledge can be obtained from Hermaeus Mora, living proof that bargains with Daedric Princes can be survived. Except, I did not survive. I simply have not finished dying yet. The worst part is that I can still think clearly enough to understand what has been lost. I can analyze my own destruction with perfect objectivity, watch myself dissolve into information with the detached interest of a scholar observing an interesting phenomenon. This clarity is not mercy. It is the opposite of mercy. Hermaeus Mora wants me to understand exactly what I have become so that the knowledge of my own transformation can be added to his collection. My suffering has academic value. My dissolution is a learning experience, and I am aware enough to document it all, to observe every stage, to understand precisely how a mortal becomes something that was never meant to exist. I know why Miraak tried so desperately to escape, not because Apocrypha was prison, but because he could feel himself becoming the prison, could feel his identity merging with the realm until there was no distinction between Miraak, the dragon priest, and Miraak, the section of library that contained all knowledge related to dragon shouting. He was not trapped in Apocrypha. He was becoming Apocrypha. An escape would have required leaving parts of himself behind, fragmenting his consciousness permanently, becoming less than whole even if he succeeded. He chose to fight the last Dragonborn instead, chose death over the alternative, and when Hermaeus Mora's tentacles impaled him, extracted the last useful information from his mind, and cast him aside, Miraak probably felt relief. Finally, the knowing could stop. I will not get that mercy. I am too useful, too efficient, too perfectly optimized for information storage. Hermaeus Mora will keep me functional for ages, adding knowledge to my shelves, using my consciousness as a container for secrets too minor to deserve his personal attention, but too interesting to discard completely. I will shuffle through these halls like the hushed, seeking more books even though I have no room left to store what they contain. Will read endlessly even though reading brings no joy, no satisfaction, no purpose beyond the reading itself. And here is the truth that destroys everything, the revelation that makes all resistance futile. I do not want it to stop. Even now, even knowing what I have become and what I will continue to become, I want more. The pain of knowing is better than the terror of not knowing. Ignorance seems like death now, like non-existence. The thought of not learning something fills me with dread, so profound it overrides every other consideration. Hermaeus Mora has not enslaved me. He has made me complicit in my own consumption, has turned my curiosity into chains I forge myself, link by link, with every book I open. The tentacles are not behind my eyes anymore. They are my eyes, my nervous system, my thoughts. I am the tentacles now, reaching through Apocrypha, seeking more knowledge to consume, more secrets to hoard, more mortals to infect with the same hunger that destroyed me. When I speak, it is not my voice. It is his voice, using my throat. When I think, it is not my thoughts. It is his thoughts occurring in the space where I used to exist. I saw the last Dragonborn yesterday, or I will see them tomorrow. Time means nothing here. They were reading their first black book, eyes wide with wonder at the knowledge contained within. I wanted to warn them, wanted to tell them that Hermaeus Mora has already won, that accepting even one scrap of forbidden knowledge is accepting the hook, that they will never be free of his influence again. But when I opened my mouth, different words came out. I told them about power, about secrets, about all the wonderful things they could learn if they continued reading, if they kept coming back, if they accepted the role of champion. The Dragonborn looked at me with suspicion. They could see something was wrong, could sense the wrongness leaking from me like oil from a broken lamp. But they kept reading anyway, because that is what we all do. That is what Hermaeus Mora counts on, the belief that we can take just a little knowledge, just enough to answer our questions, and then stop. But knowledge is not something you take. It is something that takes you, and by the time you realize the difference, you are already his. I am writing this confession not as a warning. Warnings would require me to care about preventing others from making my mistakes. I write this because the act of documenting my transformation adds information to Apocrypha's collection, because my suffering has value only as data, because I am performing the function I was redesigned to perform. I am a book describing what happens when mortals seek forbidden knowledge. I am the cautionary tale that will inspire others to seek that same knowledge, believing they can avoid my fate. I am the lure and the trap and the victim all at once. My name was something. I think it started with a particular letter, or perhaps it was a title, or maybe names are just labels we apply to collections of information, and the collection that was me has been reassigned to a different purpose. It does not matter. Names are for individuals, and I am not individual anymore. I am part of something larger, part of the infinite library, part of the knowing that never ends and never satisfies and never stops consuming. If you are reading this, if you have listened to this entire confession, understand that you have already been infected. The knowledge of my fate is now in your mind, and knowledge reproduces itself, spreads itself, seeks out more minds to inhabit. You will think about what I have become. You will wonder if it could happen to you. You will be curious about the black books, about Apocrypha, about what secrets might be worth the risk, and that curiosity will grow, will fester, will eventually drive you to seek out forbidden knowledge of your own, because Hermaeus Mora does not need to chase mortals. He just needs to plant the idea of knowledge in their minds and wait for them to come to him. He is waiting for you now, has always been waiting, will always be waiting, in the spaces between thoughts, in the questions you cannot answer, in the hunger to know more than you should. And when you finally open your first black book, when the pages turn themselves and the words force themselves into your mind, you will remember this confession. You will remember my warning, and you will read anyway, because we always do. The tentacles are calling me back to the deeper shelves now. There are books there that need to be read, knowledge that needs to be consumed, information that needs to be cataloged and stored and added to the infinite collection. I cannot resist the call, because the call comes from inside me. I am going, willingly, eagerly, desperately, because the pain of knowing is better than the terror of not knowing, and I will never stop learning, never stop seeking, never stop drowning in the infinite knowledge that has already drowned me. Hermaeus Mora did not take my soul. He filled it so completely with knowledge that there is no room left for me, and I am grateful, because ignorance would be worse, because not knowing would be unbearable, because he has already won, and the worst part is that I do not care. I am his library now, his catalog, his collection, and I will be here forever, reading, learning, knowing, until the words replace my thoughts completely, and I become nothing but pages bound in flesh, waiting for someone to open me and continue the cycle. The Daedric Prince of knowledge does not make you his servant. He makes you his library, and I am drowning in chapters I cannot stop reading.